Tens of thousands of light years above our heads, circling around our galaxy, lie some of the most mysterious objects in the night sky. They're called globular clusters, and tonight I'm going to take a look at two of them from right here in my observatory. These clusters are groups of hundreds of thousands of stars that are packed super close together. These objects have fascinated astronomers for centuries, and we now know that there are hundreds of them in our Milky Way galaxy alone. Here's an incredible Hubble image of M13, one of the most famous globular clusters in the entire night sky. Have you ever wondered what this might look like through an amateur telescope? And what makes these clusters so mysterious? In this video, we're going to learn more about them as I photograph M13 and one more star cluster, using my own camera and telescope for my observatory. By the end of the video, we're going to see what I can reveal inside some of the most interesting objects in the universe. These globular clusters have actually been observed unknowingly for thousands of years. We have writings from the year 150 describing observations of Omega Centauri, a group of about 500,000 stars that's mostly visible in the southern sky from the southern hemisphere. But because there weren't any telescopes back then, it was mistaken for and categorized as an ordinary star, just like the thousands of others that early astronomers saw across the night sky. That meant the truth about these objects would remain hidden for over 1,500 years. And by the 17th century, we finally had telescopes, and astronomers were able to start making early observations. Many of these clusters were documented by Charles Messier, who made a famous list of 110 objects. Anytime you see the letter M and a number assigned to an object in space, it comes from the Messier catalog. For example, the Andromeda Galaxy is M31, and the Orion Nebula is M42. It actually wasn't until the late 1700s that telescopes became good enough to finally reveal the fact that these clusters were groups of thousands of individual stars, just like our very own sun. The first time this happened was with M4, observed by Messier himself in 1764. What's strange about these clusters is that they're outside the plane of our galaxy, which is where almost everything in the Milky Way is. Instead, they orbit around it, tens of thousands of light years above and below the Milky Way. The clusters are spread out evenly around the center of the galaxy, but that's not the case from our perspective here on Earth. We observe more of them on one side of the night sky than the other. This is actually one of the first pieces of evidence that our solar system is not at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. These globular clusters have puzzled astronomers from the ancient times until today, which is why we spend a lot of time looking at them with our biggest and best space telescopes, like this Hubble image of M13. But how much can we reveal with an amateur telescope? Let's go outside to the observatory and find out. We're in for a real good night here at the observatory. It's been a beautiful spring day and there's not a cloud in the sky to be seen. You might think it's the perfect night for astrophotography, and it is, except for one big thing. It's a full moon tonight. For us amateur astronomers, the moon is not our friend. That's because besides the sun, the moon is actually the biggest source of light pollution in the sky, and it will wash out your details. It makes it much harder to photograph the dust and gas of dim nebulas, or the glow from distant galaxies that are millions of light years away. But I'll take advantage of every clear night I can get. And as is often said, all of your clear nights will happen on days when you're busy and can't get outside, or when there's a full moon in the sky. And that's certainly the case tonight. But the good news is I'm photographing star clusters tonight, which actually aren't really impacted by the moonlight. The stars are bright enough to cut right through it. And so there's a good tip for you. If you have to be outside during a full moon, whether you're doing astrophotography like me or looking through a telescope with your eyes, it's a good time to go after star clusters. Tonight is really exciting for me because I haven't gone after these star clusters before. My wide-field refractor telescope doesn't have the power to go after these star clusters. They appear smaller in the sky. The stars are really packed in tight together. So you need a scope with the power to go after them. This one has 700 millimeters of focal length. It'll really frame it up perfectly. The first target for tonight is M13, the Great Cluster in Hercules. You saw the Hubble image of it earlier. It'll be high in the sky to the southeast here as soon as it gets dark. I'll photograph it for a few hours, and that'll give me enough time to actually switch and shoot another star cluster, much like M13, during the second half of the night. If it all goes according to plan, we could be in for two really special images at the end of the video. I'm not totally sure what to expect. I've seen a lot of photos of these star clusters taken by other astrophotographers, but I've never gotten one for myself. How many stars will I be able to reveal? And what kind of detail can we uncover? We're about to find out. So let's get everything set up and ready to go. Now that it's dark, let's roll the roof around and open it up to the southern sky. After pointing the telescope into the constellation of Hercules, it's time to start taking photos. Short exposures are the key for going after star clusters. You don't want to expose for too long because the center of the cluster is so incredibly bright. Here's the first 30-second exposure. Look how many stars we can already see. This cluster is over 20,000 light years away. It's time to let the telescope run for a few hours to capture more photos. I captured almost 2 hours worth of images of M13. When I stacked them all together, this was the final result. This cluster is a ball of perhaps 500,000 stars, and there are thousands of them visible here. What I find so interesting about this picture is that the more you zoom in and the closer you look, the more stars you can see. These clusters are really unlike anything else in the night sky. Notice that there's no dust or gas here like we see in star-forming nebulas. All of that material has long since been used up, which takes a very long time. That tells us that this cluster of stars is incredibly old. It's estimated to have formed over 11 billion years ago, making it one of the oldest objects in the entire galaxy. As we zoom into the center of M13, the stars are so dense that they start to blend together. Near the top of this picture is an entire galaxy, which adds another element to this image. Even though it looks like it's right next to the star cluster, this is actually about 30 million light years away. It's a spiral galaxy like our own Milky Way, which means that it almost certainly has dozens if not hundreds of globular clusters of its very own. Hidden among the stars are a few more distant galaxies that are just barely big enough to be resolved. This one here is about the same size as the Milky Way, but it appears so small because it's an incredible 500 million light years away, which officially makes it the most distant object I've ever captured. Surprises like this are one of the reasons I love astrophotography. There's always new things to uncover, often by accident hidden in the background of your images. This isn't the only photo I captured last night. Around 2 a.m., while I was asleep, the telescope swung around and pointed itself at another globular cluster called M15 in the constellation Pegasus. Here's the result of about 90 minutes worth of images. This cluster is about 35,000 light years away, so a bit more distant than M13. It has over 100,000 stars in it, and the ones at the center are among the most densely packed together of any cluster in the galaxy, which has led some astronomers to speculate that there might be a black hole at the middle of it. If you were on a planet inside of M15, the sky would be filled with thousands of stars, and the nights would most likely be very bright. These globular clusters are some of the most fascinating objects in the entire night sky, and the mystery continues to this day. We still don't fully understand how these clusters formed in the first place. If they were created along with the rest of the galaxy, then why are they found orbiting around the outside edges of it? Could they perhaps be smaller dwarf galaxies that were captured in orbit around the Milky Way, like how asteroids can be captured into orbit around a planet? These are all questions we still don't have the answer to. As time goes on, I'm sure we'll learn more and maybe get the answers to some of those questions. If you have a pair of binoculars or any type of telescope, then these clusters are definitely worth checking out, and M13 is a great place to start. I hope you enjoyed these photos and learned a few things about these mysterious star clusters. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.